everybody kind of feels down. And then we just received news that we're going to have our reimbursement cut on the professional side of cataract surgery, a whopping 466 for surgeons doing that important work.
The patient to be able to understand all their technology options so that, in the end, they can make a decision that I like to call, what technology would that patient have if they knew what I know?
There is so much that can be challenging. One of the things, a lot of those things are beyond our control.
Right.
Like we can't personally do a lot about the Medicare cuts.
Right.
And yet there's still so much within our control. Hey everybody, and welcome to Free Range Vision. I'm Matt Jensen alongside Dr. Vance Thompson. And for nearly 2 decades, we've been pioneering in practice, business, and team leadership. We'll cover everything from the pivotal lessons we've learned to the formidable challenges we've overcome and sometimes lost to, providing you with the essential tools to steer your journey and empower your team as you venture together. So whether you're at the helm of a practice or simply striving to cultivate a stronger culture, well, you found your flock. Let's venture off the beaten path together. Welcome to Free Range Vision. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Free Range Vision. I'm Matt Jensen, and this is my friend Dr. Vance Thompson. We worked together for nearly 20 years, and actually just sent a note to you this morning, Vance, on how today, 3 years ago, was when we told the team that I was going to be leaving.
Wow.
Kind of a commemorative day that we get to circle back with one another in our lives and still celebrate all the goodness that we worked on then and we continue to work on together, but also in our own ways.
Well, and I'm still crying, but I'm also still joyful about how you're touching the world in such a beautiful way. I'm so proud of you.
Well, I'm proud of you too, and I miss you guys every day. You know that.
Yeah.
And but we both get to do good and fun work. And today we're talking about that good and fun work. It seems like right now, with everything in the news, people are having a hard time feeling good about the way 2025 is ending. 2024 was just okay for a lot of practices. 2025 kind of feels like I like to say, kind of like a lemon, and right now we're kind of feeling like it's sour. We might end the year rough, and the economy and geopolitical things, everybody kind of feels down. And then we just received news that we're going to have our reimbursement cut on the professional side of cataract surgery, a whopping 466 for surgeons doing that important work. And so today on Free Range Vision, we're going to be talking about how do we fight back in 2026? What should we be doing at the practice to invest our time and energy so our practices can stay solvent? And I think in doing so, we're going to find these are things we should be doing anyway. They're just good practices, and it sure makes patients happy, but it makes the team happy too. So 2026, how to plan for the future. First, just give us an overview, Vance. You've been in these situations before, 2008 to 2009. We were working together.
Yeah.
COVID, when the market felt really tenuous. Is this the time where you really just you tighten up and you just hold on to things tightly and stop your spend and just put up barriers around your team, or do you go out and continue to work even harder in the marketplace?
Well, first of all, I think there's so many things to be, happy about. If you enjoy what you do, that's a great reward in and of itself. And serving, serving other patients and helping them figure out their, lifelong visual needs is super rewarding. And so I think that, sometimes it makes you, sit back, and tougher times make you sit back and look at, why do you do what you do and what truly brings you joy. And so, as far as the, business side of it, there is, realities, because I absolutely, love working with my team and want to make the right decisions so that they can, have a good job to go, support their families and their life. And so there's a lot to be happy about too. And I think sometimes even focusing on that happiness and choosing joy helps you to navigate the challenges. And so I'm excited to talk about the
Yeah.
challenges, but there's a lot to be happy about too.
You bring up a really good point, and I hear you talk to your colleagues about it, and you've talked to me about it. It's funny that in a time when where there is so much that can be challenging, one of the things, a lot of those things are beyond our control. Like
Right.
we can't personally do a lot about the Medicare cuts,
Right.
and yet there's still so much within our control that can contribute to, our practice health, the health of our teams, but also our own well-being if we just take time. And so that's a great place to start.
Right.
Give us a sense of how you keep that perspective.
Well, I think for one, having a spiritual life and knowing everything happens for a reason. And two, not, thinking about self first and wanting to serve others. And, three, getting some exercise and some quiet time and, staying, up on your game at what you do professionally, reading and enjoying that, but also enjoying other things like Hallmark movies. And,
It's that time of year.
yeah, yeah. And, so I think, making sure that you have a good attitude, you've heard me say before, one of my favorite movies is Ratatouille because I love cooking and I love wine pairings and the romance of, a great restaurant and I love a positive attitude, and I've wanted to make a movie about it and call it Attitooey. And so, I just think that a lot of these things are really important to not just focus on the negative. And frankly, sometimes, I even feel sorry. I mean, our government has a tough road to hoe too with, increasing debt. And how do you take, one of the largest, aspects of that debt, healthcare, and deal with these, reducing reimbursements. And so I think that, there's the realities, but that you'll have choices in your practice of what to do. Even if you're going to do the same thing and not maybe take some of the pointers that we're going to talk about today, you can cast a wider net on who you're trying to influence. And in the world of eye care, especially eye surgery, you work with other doctors and providers, and you can go out and have coffee and talk about what you do and do some of the things that got you excuse me, where you're at in your practice. And not only a wider net, as far as driving further to talk to optometrists you work with, other ophthalmologists who maybe don't do what you do, but family doctors and other areas of disciplines. There's a lot to be done, and oh, by the way, it can increase the fun of what we do.
That's such a good point, Vance. This time of year, I think, first of all, a lot of practices, hopefully, are pretty much booked up through the end of the year, right? Because it's when you're hearing this, it's probably either November or December, and people's plan years have been filled up because of their deductibles, and they're wanting to get that surgery done before January hits, and they've got a brand new deductible to fulfill. And so hopefully that's the case. And if it's not, then start telling some people that you have openings because that's a gimme. This is last 3 months of the year is 40 to 50% of your volume. But then the other thing is that in our world it actually is a little bit quieter because we work with doctors, and so it seems like the end of the year we're not able to get in with them as much. And so today we had our own team meeting, and in times like this where it feels like, man, there's a heavy load, we just asked the question, "How's everybody doing? How's everybody?" And it felt like they've been affected by some of the darkness out there. And it's a good time to just be that light in the darkness and be encouraging. And it seems to shine brighter in times like this when you just keep a good attitude. And I think people are watching folks like you. Uh, I hope folks like me, who try to keep a positive attitude and try to draw our source of encouragement from places other than ourselves. And so I think that's really important. And it's a good place to start. Let's dive into the practice though.
Okay.
You have a big team retreat coming up, and you're going to talk about the same things that you've been teaching about for years, and now there's a course about it called BRICS, or the Business of Refractive Cataract Surgery. And you're going back to basics with your team, closing shop for one day, and all, nearly 600 people are doing workshops on how to implement advanced technology within cataract surgery, making sure that every patient is fully educated about their options. Tell us about that commitment. What's that day going to look like?
Well, we're going to close the clinic and we're going to get everybody in a room. And, I think it means a lot to the team when we spend this time not only socializing with them, but preparing to, educate them and even ask their advice about some of the things that we can do to be our very, very best. But our retreats over the years have been so impactful for increasing workplace joy and also learning together, about how to bring our A game, and not only to the patient but to each other.
Hmm.
Because my saying, the team who loves and cares for each other will create an environment where the patient feels loved and cared for. And that involves taking some time together and occasionally socializing, even having fun, but educating each other and really feeling a purpose for what we're doing in our journey. And that really, to me, it makes what we do really, really joyful. So I've been working hard on my talk, and my talk is really about this idea of refractive surgery that I've dedicated my career to and absolutely love and believe in, of the cornea, phakic IOL, and lens replacement. I love to talk about comprehensive refractive surgery so that when patients come in and, they're, desiring this less dependence on optical devices in their life, I can tell them, if you see good with glasses, we oftentimes have a great procedure to help you see good without them, whether it's laser vision correction on your cornea or a lens implant in your eye, kind of like an inside the eye contact lens. But if you don't see good with glasses and your image quality is starting to be reduced, or you don't want to wait that long and you're just usually losing your reading vision, we can talk about lens replacement.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to be talking a lot about lens replacement in this talk. And that always involves refractive lens exchange, which, is a beautiful procedure for helping people not need reading glasses. But in this cataract population, there is so much need. There is so many people that are needing cataract surgery in our world today, and they want to learn about their options. And when, such a small percentage of implants being put in our country are the implants that correct both reading range and clarity. And when you talk to patients, at least half of them, and I think it's even higher, would love to have an advanced implant. It just doesn't make sense to me that the patients aren't getting what they want. They're more than willing to invest their hard-earned dollars, their cash, on top of what insurance pays. And the practice is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't add up. And so my mission, since our practice is doing quite well, because we, are very well versed in educating patients on these options and then delivering on those options. And then if they still have some blur, optimizing those options. So ultimately the patient experiences great joy. They feel great about their investment. They got the full range implant they want. The practice is healthier because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're out telling their friends. And so we're educating our team on all aspects of that. And I love educating other doctors and their teams on that too.
Well, it's really an effort of no sight left behind, right? And that
Yeah.
not so much that you encourage everybody to have the advanced technology of distance, intermediate, and near vision as part of their lens exchange or cataract procedure, but that they at least are educated enough to make the decision for themselves.
Exactly.
And, recently having given a similar talk, and I know you and I just recently discussed this, Alcon did a study at the end of 2023, and it said that only 51% of folks who had cataracts knew that they had advanced technology options that could be performed as part of their cataract surgery. Now that's nearly 20 years of advanced technology being a part of the cataract conversation, and yet we're just not talking about it.
Right.
Um, and so, I mean, if we were bringing it up as a part of informed consent, as an entire, body of doctors and practices, I think that, one, that number would be different. And my goal is that that number is 100%. Everybody knows about it. My goal isn't that adoption is 100%. That's up to the patient.
Right.
But I know you believe this. What you want is an educated patient so they can make a good decision for themselves. But that's
Right.
not out there right now.
Right. No, that's exactly right, and I think that's the ultimate recommendation for, me to get to know the patient and their hopes and desires, and the patient to be able to understand all their technology options, so that, in the end, they can make a decision that I like to call, what technology would that patient have if they knew what I know? And that rate, because I don't like the word conversion rate, is what I'm trying to achieve in every consultation to help them understand what I know, me get to know them, and then we make a decision, together. And for me, that ends up being around, 40% of my implants end up being implants that correct presbyopia and clarity. And that's ruling out patients with, macular degeneration and other issues, optic nerve and whatever, that they're just not going to get a return on the investment in that advanced technology. So when I rule out patients who, aren't good candidates, the majority of the people that come to me end up saying, I've read your materials. I've done the research that your phone team asked me to do. I've learned everything that you and your team have taught me, and I see the value of replacing both options, and I want to go on the advanced implant cataract surgery journey.
Hmm. And yet you also know that it's some patients, when educated properly, don't choose that, which is also a win. Then they're well informed, right? Uh,
Well, and I even get thank you notes from them.
right,
Thank
right.
you for helping me make my lifelong vision decision. I'm very happy with my single vision implant and my multifocal glasses. I
Hmm.
mean, that's all we're trying to do is help them make what's best for them.
Well, and I can be a personal testimony to you on that. For listeners out there, I had a very close family member recently go to Vance, and during the consultation, he and she decided together that the next step wasn't obvious, that it was going to be of real benefit to go after that lens in an elective fashion, right?
Right.
And that there's still some good accommodation left, and until it's more obvious or it's bothering you enough, there's no harm in just keeping at what you're doing. And I think that's a mark of a good surgeon. I think that it's being excellent at your craft, being excellent at being a surgeon, but also being excellent at patient selection. So important.
Yeah. Well, we want to be good listeners and we want to put our heart and mind into it. And that's the joy of the practice of medicine.
So I think the first bullet point that I would have on if I were still running a practice and I wanted to reshape the hope of what we have and doing well next year, it would be doubling down on educating the team and then patients on their advanced technology options in cataract surgery. Everybody should leave your office knowing that they had an advanced technology option, and I believe that when educated properly, that somewhere between 25 and 50% of patients will choose it, and it's held true across a ton of practices across the U.S.
Well, and I not only do I agree 100%, I don't think we're done with the, Medicare cuts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so I think that again, it's a tough combination to see a practice hurting and then a patient who was willing to invest not getting the technology that they wanted.
Mhm.
And I think that, the main reason is surgeon and practice confidence. And that's why you and I like to teach in a way
Mhm.
where we've had surgeons come up and grab our arms with misty eyes and say, these teachings changed my life and saved my practice.
Mhm.
And that's what we want to do because we know that the practice is comfortable with delivering advanced technology lenses and single vision lenses is going out and helping a lot of people and kind of reinvigorating their joy of the practice of medicine.
Yeah. Well, Vance, I love that you said the door hasn't completely closed on the reimbursement cuts, but I wanna still hold on to that fear so people listen to our next few bullet points on how to make 2026 great, despite Medicare cuts. One thing I just wanna mention as it relates to advanced technology lenses and cataract surgery is I go from practice to practice. I still find that when, they educate properly their patients about the options that they have, it's pretty rare that patients don't choose to have. I mean, a large number of them choose to have the advanced technology, and I believe we're still at the infancy of this, air quotes now marketplace, and where price is still inelastic. And I think that people are very um, it everything is going up in price. And so if you haven't addressed your price at your practice lately, it's worth looking at it because I think that we can command a higher price. The work is worth doing. It's worth investing in, and I think that it bodes well for us in the future as our technologies progress.
I haven't thought about this too much, but while you were talking, I got to thinking about veterinary medicine and how they're, we're used to paying out of pocket
Hmm.
for our pet that we love. But something happened in medicine where we became so dependent on insurance companies and Medicare that we kind of started, I think, devaluing our services and not feeling so comfortable about working on putting a value on it that people would pay out of pocket just like they do for their pet. And it's a mindset that needs to change.
You're exactly right, and there's not a better investment than your own ability to see the world. There's so many things that come from that, from your well-being to your overall health and safety. Really, really good point. People will run through walls for their animals, but almost never for themselves.
Right.
So good. Vance, I want to transition to just the other part of comprehensive refractive surgery, which is the corneal surgery. A lot of people are closing out 2025 saying, LASIK's dead. And across the industry, it looks like it's down 18% in 2025 from where it was in 2022, the height after COVID. Now, the question that I have is you've had some recent success and I don't know what your volumes are, but you've had some recent communications success in connecting with patients who are still interested. What have you been doing?
Well, I think, one of the things that's happened in the world of refractive surgery is I think people have drifted from what it takes to have a healthy refractive surgery practice. LASIK is really still the king of refractive surgery. Nothing's risk-free. That's why you always want to be well educated on the benefits and risks. But we've learned so much about LASIK. For instance, making sure that you treat the tear film real well preoperatively and take care of any, dry eye issues postoperatively. And we know also that there's just beautiful platforms that have been FDA approved, including the recent ray tracing platform that we had the honor of being a part of the FDA study. And the image quality that's happening with what's considered the world's most accurate way to correct your vision, LASIK, has just been wonderful. But how we communicate those things is really important. We know social media has been such a blessing to get the word out. But we also know that we have kind of tried and true ways that patients love. And I remember we used to do a lot of patient seminars.
Right, right.
We would do them, multiple times a month, and really a rich time to in person, almost like you're going to the local college to get a credit hour course in refractive surgery.
Well, and sometimes we were, because they were held on college campuses.
No, that's exactly right.
So
But we drifted away from that, thinking that patients wanted to do all their education online. And again, even though we know online education has such a beautiful value, there's also people that go to college in person,
mhm.
and there's people that do a hybrid, some online and some in person. And so, our practice decided to reinstitute patient seminars and had practice-wide support and even excitement, because a lot of even our more recent employees had never experienced a patient seminar. And our team prepared, and we worked hard on our slides, and the response was unbelievable. I mean, we had over 100 people, that were excited about coming to that first seminar, and we've done multiple since, and the interest hasn't waned. And so I think, one of my points to, practices out there is some of those things that you may have drifted away from because you thought, with this, digital era that we're in, revisit those.
Mhm.
It can really be fun for you and your practice, and it helps get the word out. And to tell you the truth, one of the things I love about, marketing and advertising education is I think it's the purest form of marketing and education. And also the patients that can't come are hearing that, wow, this place is making an extra effort to educate the public about their options.
Well, and it really demystifies a lot of what people have fear around, which is the place itself and the laser. And in the past, we've had patients, past patients speak, about their experience. But I think that there's a lot of fear that are based on just the unknown that can really be addressed in a forum like that. And we'll put the actual outcomes in the show notes for today. But if memory serves, you had about 188 registrations. I think 88 people in total came. And I think half of those within at least the first few months have scheduled some form of procedure. And and we'll put the real numbers if they're off a little bit from memory in the show notes, so you have them. But I think it bodes well to say, it's a worthwhile investment. But it's more than just the external, investment of marketing dollars and invading cars and living rooms through sound waves and radio waves and traditional media, which it tends to be tied to. But also, it's an investment of time. I
Right.
mean, everybody gets ready, clinic's done. It'd be awful handy to just go home and a cart of nice cookies comes out and the coffee's still on. And it's kind of a celebratory evening, and a bunch of doctors come up and they give it their best, and patients ask questions, and you're on your A game, for a few hours longer than you planned that day. But it is fun to see those patients come alive, and for you to have that extra punch of energy, coming out of that day. And I'm glad that they're working. I'm glad that seminars are back. I think it's a festive way to learn about our craft.
I do too, Matt. And one of the things that we've done a little bit different this time around than what we used to do, we actually used to separate the younger people seminar on
Mm,
laser vision correction from the older people seminar on implant replacement vision correction. And what we chose to do was to combine them.
right.
And, so many, parents value their children's opinion and vice versa. So to have all age groups coming to learn about their options of laser vision, inside the eye contact lens, what we call phakic IOL vision, and then lens replacement vision. And on top of that, teach about the power of the tear film and having that be important has really been exciting.
Yeah, and it really is, I think of the 51-year-old patient who comes in wanting to have some spectacle freedom and hoping for LASIK and maybe being disappointed that they might not be the best candidate because of their reading vision issues or because they might have a cloudy lens, right?
Right.
But yet they should still learn about all of their options. And so I think it's really smart that you're putting them all in one. Plus, they reference one another, like you mentioned, because they're advocates for each other. You talked about that being really the comprehensive refractive surgery program, the corneal work with first starting with the advanced tear film,
Yep.
and then the procedural work on the cornea. So that's LASIK, PRK, SMILE. You've been a part of each of those FDA monitored clinical trials. Then inside the eye, working back, there's phakic IOLs for can address higher powers, but also can get down to some pretty nifty, medium, and even low corrections,
Right.
which I think we didn't know that it could do that in the past, or didn't know if it would appeal to as many folks. And then all the way to inside the eye with removing the natural lens and replacing it with one of these advanced lenses we've been talking about. That's the essence of a comprehensive refractive surgery program, and I think it's worth talking about.
Yes, me too.
And so our big number 2 point, number 1 was um, start educating your team and start educating your patients about advanced technology in cataract surgery. Doesn't cost anything to do that work, and those patients are already coming in your door. Point number 2 is try to breathe new life into your refractive surgery program. Think of all the innovations that have happened in each one of those 4 realms. There's so many things we can be doing. Some of them reimbursable, some of them cash pay for the tear film. And moving back in the eye, both insurance reimbursable or elective when it comes to RLE and cataract surgery. So, a lot to talk about there with your team and your patients. I want to get to another category, and it's one that you've been in the driver's seat for your organization as well for the last, I don't know, 15 years or so, and that's a really comprehensive aesthetics and oculoplastics program, and I just marvel at the growth of those programs, Vance, because I think that sometimes it's easier to talk to people. They're more willing to talk about how they want the world to view themselves more than they want to talk about how they view the world, which is its own kind of philosophical paradox, right? But it really seems like aesthetics continues to be a growth part of your programs. Tell me how somebody might incorporate aesthetics or oculoplastics into their plan for 2026.
Well, for one, this is a big area of I not only want, but I say need. Patients wanting to feel better about themselves has a therapeutic effect in so many ways in their life. So it really brings a lot of joy adding aesthetics to the program. I'm not an aesthetics expert,
Hmm.
so we have other people on our team that do that. But I am an expert in my desire to bring joy to people, whether it be the team, or the patient. And so when you're going to add elective offerings, whether it's refractive corneal surgery or advanced implants or dry eye or aesthetics,
Hmm.
you really want to have you want to have your patient experience cycle nailed.
Hmm.
And there's great teachings that you do, Matt, on how to create that patient experience that an elective, offering, is optimized. Because, when you talk about aesthetics, there is a mental effect, even somewhat spiritual effect, in addition to the physical benefit and the aesthetic benefit of looking in the mirror. And so, how someone is treated in a journey like that
So
uh,
important.
is so important.
Yeah.
And so, working on that has a ripple effect across the whole practice, not only in practice pride, but in all patient offerings. And so, aesthetics is really a wonderful thing to add to a practice. And I think we have both male and female patients that come into the aesthetics side of the program. I know they're always looking at me saying, "Hey, we could help you." uh,
They're
and
looking at me saying, "Wow, you're my meal ticket."
and but we also know that, 70% and maybe even higher of health decisions are made by, women.
Mhm.
And I really, for someone who built his practice centered around a mother's love for their child, that, hey, if I could create a practice experience that a
Mhm.
mother would trust me to take care of their child, I'm going to be okay, because there's nothing more powerful than a mother's love. But it's one of the reasons I say, in general, women run this world.
Well, you're
And
you're you're not wrong, and it's been substantiated by a lot of research. And
yeah.
Faith Popcorn in the early 2000s wrote a book called Evolution. She's the marketer who came up with the milk campaign,
Oh, wow.
and it talks about how decisions are made uh, primarily by women, and the ones that we think we're making as men are really heavily affected by women's influence. And so
Right.
I think that you're precisely right that we have to make that appeal to how it would work in that market first, and then how it appeals to men alongside that.
Well, it's amazing, Matt, that you can take the most influential decision maker
Hmm.
and make her feel better about herself, and have her experience your practice from that perspective, and it build the confidence that she says, to her spouse or her parents or her children, that you can trust that center.
Hmm.
I've been going there for years. They take care of me, and now that you have some visual needs, that's a good place to go.
Right. I feel refreshed.
Right.
Right. I feel like they get me. One of the things that I think that you said at the very beginning of this topic was that you're not the expert when it comes to this. And I opened by saying you're in the driver's seat of the oculoplastics and aesthetics at Vance Thompson Vision. And to be more clear, what you are in the driver's seat um, for in your program is finding world class experts who commit themselves to that same patient experience,
Yes.
right? And because there's been a lot of people who've come along who were great surgeons, but didn't have that bedside manner.
Right.
They didn't have that desire to, even though it might be for cornea and refractive surgery, the desire to still stay after and see what's going on with the refractive program. And even though they're an oculoplastic surgeon, right, to
Yeah.
be interested in the health of the whole,
Right.
because they know their patients are coming from that area too.
Right.
So I think that for the practice leaders, the doctors who are running the programs and the administrators that are trying to recruit people, everything's a job interview. And if you got to know early on if they're going to have an offering that they hope to charge a patient for and do a good job, that's only part of the equation. And unfortunately, it's the easiest part.
Right.
The hardest part is they have a heart that's going to be driven by serving others. How are they going to be as a leader of the team? Right.
Right.
And so that is so important. And I just marvel at the folks you've been able to recruit or that we've grown at Vance Thompson Vision who espouse that kind of commitment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So the third bullet point to really reshape how you're looking at 2026 and to make lemonade out of lemons is to consider either breathing new life into your aesthetics and oculoplastics program or consider starting one. It's going to continue to grow as people age. We're not getting younger, and the number of people getting to be, plus 65 is going to continue to grow for about another 21 years or so. And so that's worth noting. Last, Vance, I want to transition us to a category that really neither one of us are experts in, but we know our colleagues are, and that's this space of interventional glaucoma. It's all over the place.
Right.
People are talking about it, and we believe that for a long time, we know it's the second leading cause of blindness, and it's the silent thief of vision. Most
Right.
people don't know it's damaged their vision until a lot of their vision's gone, and then the next goal is to just stop the progression, right? And for a lot of years, our mainstay was maybe to prescribe drops for those patients, and we know that our optometric colleagues do that as well. And yet, a lot of these patients maybe are lost to follow up or not super compliant with their drops, and they want to be. right? But maybe they don't fill their script after the first month for a few days, or maybe there's adverse events with their vision, or maybe it's expensive. Maybe they took it, they skipped a day. A lot of things can affect the therapeutic viability. And so there's this whole category now of people who are doing interventions first, something surgically or procedurally, and then doing drops, prescribing drops as a bridge therapy. And what are you observing in your own practice, though you're not the subject matter expert? What are you hearing your colleagues talk about when it comes to interventional glaucoma?
Well, the companies have put so much effort into the research and development of these, technologies like MIGs, uh, and like lasers and implantable devices that have just changed the world of glaucoma. And I think that, increasing the awareness of glaucoma, making sure people get their yearly eye exams. I oftentimes will put keratoconus and
Precisely.
glaucoma
That's right.
into the same category, that they're both, irreversible damage that we can help people with just by teaching them to, get yearly eye exams. Don't rub your eyes or push your face into a pillow all night for keratoconus, and get your eye pressure checked every year with regards to glaucoma, because you're right, it's a silent stealer of sight, and it's painless. And sometimes patients even have family history of
Hmm.
it, and they're still not getting their eyes checked. So increasing awareness is super important, but also once that diagnosis is being made, to do something that doesn't rely on them, or what we call compliance when it
Right.
comes to, like you just talked so, eloquently about drops and the issues that we see with them. And so, in our research program, it's just I've marveled at, some of the technologies my partners have
It's
helped
impressive, right?
bring to the world, and other researchers around the world. And now they're mainstay therapies that are considered integral to
Hmm.
glaucoma care. And so if you're, a practice out there that especially is doing anterior segment surgery and taking care of glaucoma patients, you want to not only, go learn about interventional glaucoma. We have doctors coming through all the time, but you want to understand, just like the business of refractive cataract surgery, you want to understand the business of interventional glaucoma. There's a big need out there. And so, again, to me, it's 0 for 2. If the practice is hurting and patients are hurting because they're not getting things that, both can be helped by delivering these advanced technologies.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And it feels like it's amongst the more righteous things that we can do, because it is sight stealing.
Yeah,
That intervening seems like it's extremely humane.
right,
And so throw me into that challenge
right,
on educating people about it. The thing that I think is also remarkable about some of these first line treatments, lasers being one, but also like procedural pharmaceuticals, a couple of companies have great ones, is you don't need to fail a therapy first. You don't have to show that drops failed, that they weren't compliant.
right,
Because if you think of that, what a terrible bridge, or what a terrible hurdle to have to clear to do
right.
a procedure. We have to prove that your vision is worse in order
Yeah,
to get the next step
yeah, not
submitted.
good.
No, it seems like that's the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah,
But even way before that, um, in talking with some of the companies that do compliance trainings for our country and our doctors, one of the things that they find is that practices aren't doing visual fields as much as they should. You know, glaucoma is stated to progress enough to maybe call for a couple of visual fields a year. And once somebody's on drops, we might not do a visual field, until every other year or longer. And boy, that seems to be too much in a progressive disease where compliance is suspect.
right,
And so intervening early with the procedure, using drops as a bridge therapy, making sure we're doing more visual fields, which by the way we can bill for.
right.
Um, all these things are things that can help the patient first, but also your bottom line. I mean, some
Right.
of these things reimburse similar uh, to cataract surgery, some of them more,
Right.
and they can be, and most importantly, they can be um, really helpful in preventing the progression for patients.
Well, you're so right, Matt. And visual fields makes me also think about corneal topography and the keratoconus sense that, practices are wondering how to navigate the future and bring more value to their patient population and make their practice healthier in the process. Again, a win-win. And having corneal topographies be a part of routine eye exams so that we can rule out keratoconus or,
Hmm.
you know, educate patients early about the hazards of eye rubbing and pillow diving or cross-link the patient's cornea and take care of them. So glaucoma and keratoconus are big ones that there's so many major advances in our world diagnostically and treatment-wise that help practices deliver great things to patients.
Well, we're back to where we started, which is there's a lot of things to be happy about. Because if you just take a step back and look at everything we just discussed, there's a disease management opportunity with keratoconus. Oftentimes, we can catch it in teens, and we catch it later as well. But that's something we can do early on a patient, and we want to do it as early as possible. And then next thing is laser vision correction or tear film chemistry, treatment, and then laser vision correction, and then something inside the eye, and then eventually glaucoma. I mean, you start to look at the entire potential life cycle. You don't wish all of those ailments on people, but it starts to look like a pretty complete package for the comprehensive ophthalmologist that wants to offer a lot of things. And a pretty good way to start the year thinking, man, I think I can get into a lot of those things that will really help a lot of people. And won't be too shabby on my practice either.
I agree 100%, Matt. And that's why when you talk about some of the, declining mood of 2025, 2025 was one of our greatest years ever.
In
And
your practice, right?
in our
That's right.
practice, and every single thing we just talked about, we have a champion working on optimizing that in our practice. And so for practices that are looking to add those things, there's people out there willing to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're going it alone, that might be a lot to to bite off, all those different subcategories. I like to just lay them out next to each other to just imagine the entire patient life cycle,
Right.
and the lifetime value that we bring to the patient in
Right.
helping them with their vision. Also the lifetime value they present to me as a businessman, running practices. I know doctors don't look at it like that, but I do. I had to. And I think that, I would want to find partners who can really specialize in some of those things if I were going it alone out there. But that does present some hope, and that's really our fourth category is the interventional glaucoma world. And with all those things now set aside, the talks we had about advanced technology lenses, um, treating the tear film well, some reimbursement based, some elective based, aesthetics and oculoplastics, advanced technologies in cataract surgery and then corneal and phakic surgeries, interventional glaucoma and keratoconus. There's a lot of things to look forward to this
Right.
next year. And I think if I was to just summarize it, I think as doctors, we have to be ready to communicate because those same patients that we believe aren't calling our practice anymore, they are going to Reddit. They're going and asking questions. They'll come to the seminars. So if you're out there educating, they will swarm because they have a lot of questions and they want to understand. So a commitment to communication, first to your team and training, but then to patients, I think is a great way to start 2026.
And to your referring doctors and
Excellent
to your
point.
community
That's right.
to be writing those newsletters, not only to patients in a way that they understand, but to doctors in your community in a way they appreciate. And rolling up your sleeves and doing those in addition to seminars can really enhance practice health.
Well, Vance, I look forward to hearing how your retreat goes when you're going back to basics with your own team on the business side of refractive cataract surgery, but also the surgical and clinical side of the advancements that are there. Your kind of yearly recommitment to educating people well. And I also congratulate you on having a great year. It sounds like your program is doing awesome, and most importantly, you're training your team, and they're training, communicating well with patients. Um, Thanks everybody for listening in to how you can do better in 2026. I'm extremely optimistic about the future that we have before us. Thanks for listening to Free Range Vision.